It's a fundamental thing in merchandise of quality. A dealer, to be successful at it, doesn't have to have the Sheaffer pen. He can take the second best and still make it work. But the dealer that wants to work the best and make it the most profit will take the best merchandise to do it with. Now, I want you boys to think about it. The older boys, I've told them about it a good many times. Some of them practice and some of them don't. But it's the truth. It's the fundamental thing in selling. And why do I know that it is? I'll tell you younger boys now that this is your first time here, and it won't hurt the older ones to have it repeated to them. I sometimes think I ought to write them a letter about 3 times a year on it. 50 years ago, in a little jewelry store up 60 miles west of here, the clay was so thick and the soil was so thin that the population in that whole county has declined 5,000 people in 50 years. There's only 11,000 people in the whole county. 50 years ago, there was 16,000. We had a little jewelry store. I'll not tell you all the story, it'd take a little too long. But Father had lost all of his money in the Chicago fire of 71, and when he started on borrowed capital, and he handled all makes of everything, he found out that he couldn't pay 50 cents on the dollar in 1888. He asked me to come home and go in the store with him. We kept a sales book 50 years ago. We put down the cost and the selling price of everything we sold. In 1888, or about then, within a year of then, Montgomery Ward and Sears Roebuck come out with their first catalog. And when I opened the pages of that catalog, I found the 5 items that was 70% of our business was offered in that catalog is exactly what we paid for. Today, that isn't true. The manufacturers have made them mark up their prices. But 50 years ago, the 5 items that was 70% of that little jewelry store's business was exactly what it cost us when we bought them from the jobbers. The 7-jewel Elgin watch and the large watch 18 size cost us $4 1/4. It was offered in there for $4 1/4. 1847 Rogers knives and forks cost $3 1/4. They were in there at $3 1/4. 15-jewel Waltham watch was in there at $5 1/4 and cost us $5 1/4. There was a Seth Thomas clock and a wedding ring. It was the 5 items that started young people out as they started in life, the Rogers knives and forks and so on. Pretty fine opportunity to pay off the mortgage on the store when we didn't have enough merchandise to pay 50 cents on the dollar. But fortunately, some far-seeing man had united 2 watch companies, the Aurora Watch Company of Aurora, Illinois, and the Lancaster Watch Company of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, into the Hamilton Watch Company. Some far-seeing man conceived the idea of making a better watch and charging a fair price for it. He came out with this Hamilton watch. He didn't sell it to Sears Roebuck and Montgomery Ward. He sold it direct to the retailers. A watch that cost $5 1/4 for $4.95. And I wanted to sell the 1847 Rogers knives and forks that cost $3 1/4 for $2.75. Well, Father says you'll bust us. Oh, we're already busted. But I said I'd like for you to let me sell the watches for a week or 2 and let's try this plan. We took took a Denison tray and we put 12 watches in that tray. We put down in front the $3.95 Elgin watch and the $4.95 Waltham watch. That was 30 cents below our actual cost. We took these Hamilton watches and we marked them to $14 and $16 in a silverine case. They were nice watches. They were good watches. They were timed just to the second. We took Sears, Roebuck, and Montgomery Ward's catalog and we laid it on the showcase. And we thumbed down the pages where this $3.95, $4.95, and $2.75 Rogers knives and forks was. We didn't need to go into the other. Those three items were enough. Now, we used the rule of 4 50 years ago. The reason why I'm telling you boys, you ain't interested in watches. But you're interested in this new selling plan. And a little slip in this new selling plan will ruin a sale of a pen and pencil set or a gift set instead of just a pen. Remember, when you teach the dealer and the salespeople in the stores how to sell a gift set instead of just a pen, you're adding 50% to the volume of that store and 50% to your commission. But the least slip in the psychology of that sale kills the plan. When that farmer boy, come into that store and asked to see a $3.95 Elgin watch, and 9 out of 10 asked to see that watch. We had them right in the window every day. At $3.95, and they cost $4 1/4. The overhead of a jewelry store was about 70 or 80%. If we, when he called for that $3.95 watch, had reached in the case and handed out that $3.95 watch, and then if it reached in the case and took out one of these $14 or $16 Hamilton watches, that farm boy 50 years ago said, I didn't ask to see that other watch. He thinks he's going to sell me a better one. And he just isn't, and you just wouldn't. He'd catch that thing just that quick. But when we come in and asked for that $3.95 watch, and we took out a tray of 12 watches, and the $3.95 watch was in there, and the $14 and $16 watches were in there, and the gold-filled watches up to $45 in there. We had a plush tray laying in front of it, and we took out the $3.95 watch and laid it on the plush tray for him to see. And we never allowed a salesperson to reach down and say, here's a better watch. If they did, they didn't get their 50 cents commission. If they sold a Hamilton watch by creating a demand in the customer's mind for that watch, without referring to it, making the customer want it, without ever referring to it, they got their commission. If they urged it on the customer, they got nothing. It is so just today in selling fountain pens. And we're building our business on it. When we lay out that $3.95 watch, the boy would say, the plain never sell the mail order houses. We had to pay some down. Here was Sears Roebuck's price, $4 1/4. Our price is marked in 7 figures, $3.95. Our price was $4.95. The page summed down in the catalog house was $4.95. It wasn't 10 minutes until the mail order house was out of the picture. We undersold him. He was going to buy an Elgin watch, but he was going to buy it from us. And the more he bought, the quicker we'd be busted. So the story would go then. Is this a good watch? No. But we kept looking at those Hamilton watches, beautiful dials. They were nice looking watches. I never saw it fail, but pretty soon he'd pick one up. And he'd say, what kind of a watch is this? That's our fine Hamilton 17 Julia. What's the price? $16. Down it would go. I never saw one hold one in his hand. When he heard the price, never. He dropped it. Well, it might. The remark was made, it might be the cheapest in the world. Never another word. We go right back to the $3.95 Elgin and the $4.95 Walton. He'd say, how long do you guarantee this Elgin watch for? We guarantee it for 1 year. How long do you guarantee this Walton watch for? We guarantee it for 1 year. How long do you guarantee that Hamilton? Now, he's gone backwards. We haven't. 3 years. Why do you guarantee this? Now, he started all over again. Why do you guarantee the Hamilton watch for 3 years? And this other one only for 1 year? Because we have to base the guarantee on the amount of trouble we go through. And we go to less trouble in 3 years or 4 years on this Hamilton watch than we do on the others in 1 year. Well, what is the difference in those watches? Heavens, we're waiting for that question. We had a case opener with the shield on that we were going to give that customer to follow through when he got home. So the family would want to murder him because he spent so much money. Opened those watches out. We said, John, here's the Elgin, 7 jewel. It doesn't have patent pins. It's a good watch for the money. Here's the Walton 15 jewels, but the jewels are not in second. If a jewel should break out, you'd have to open a flange here. And maybe in covering that flange back, it might not be as nice a job. But you take this Hamilton watch if your mainspring breaks, that patent pinion unwinds. It doesn't break the cogs in the wheel. These jewels are all in setting. If a jewel should break, you can take a piece of pegwood and unloose those 2 screws and push that jewel out and set another one in and tighten the screws. You haven't hurt a flange. Your watch is just as good as before. Then it has a gay hairspring that expands the light all over. The others have the outer coil of the hairspring in 2 little pins to regulate it. And it expands sideways. It doesn't give the spring. Well, 9 times out of 10, the boy only had $10. And those farm boys, their credit was pretty good. We made some money if we only got the 10. And we lost 30 cents if we sold the other, so we could credit it. So we had a balance. He said, now, John, you understand this story well. You understand why you're buying this better watch. You buy it nearly every time. We had a dozen of those Elgin Walton watches, and they got shop worn. We'll have kept them for several years. Maybe sold 1 or 2, but very few. He said, yes, well, I said, let's go over it again. Let's go over the patent pinion, the jewels instead of the big hairspring. And you can open that watch when you get home because they've got a shield in here and you can't really break. When you get home, tell the family about it. Keep still. Until you all get to the dinner table, and when you get to the dinner table, they'll open up on you. And then, John, it's time. Open up your father's watch. And then open up this. Show your father. Show the family the difference in these 2 watches. When the boy got through the story, the family were pretty well impressed. But now I said, set your father's watch with this watch. Your watch is correct. It'll run right. It's right with the regulator, and it'll still be there when you come back to town in 3 or 4 weeks, because we had every one of them regulated right to the second. One of those Hamilton watches never went in that case until they run correctly. Oh, and sometime 3 weeks or a month, we'd see the father and the boy come in, take their watches out and look up the regulator and The scowling, the boys, we all smiled. We didn't ask any question. The boys would reach down and give us the other $6. It wouldn't be 90 days till the old man came in Baltimore. He couldn't bear to have that boy have a watch that was right on the dot every time he came into the regulator, and him 15 or 20 minutes off. We filled that county full of Hamilton watches, offering Elgin and Waltham at 30 cents less than they cost. We paid the mortgage off on the jewelry store. And I got to wondering, about 45 years later, how much good had I done those fellows? They'd done us a lot of good. They paid the mortgage off. We were busted. Mrs. Sheaffer and I were out to Los Angeles, and, you know, Long Beach out there, they call Iowa by the sea. It's filled full of retired Iowa farmers. This was 45 years later. And once a year, they have a picnic. And they go over to Lincoln Park or someplace to that picnic, and each county in Iowa, Fort Madison here, and you can go right to Fort Madison because it would be in the southeast part, laid out by counties just as it is. So I go up to Old Davis County. There's a lot of them there. They were pretty shaky, some of them. They're old. Fella'd come up and say, "You Walter Sheaffer?" I said, "Yes." So there's a Hamilton watch that I bought from you 45 years ago, and it was still doing good. Mrs. Sheaffer, see a fella coming up and say, "Here comes another Hamilton watch." After 12 or 15 of those men, after 45 years, had come up with our Hamilton watch, said, "We've seen enough Hamilton watches. Come on." Boys, that's actually true. The policies of the Sheaffer Pen Company are built a great deal, almost identical around those experiences. Give the customer the best thing they can afford to buy and charge them a fair profit on it. You benefit the salespeople. What do you do when you sell a good piece of merchandise? What must this country do if everybody's to be employed? If everybody's to get a better wage? It's not selling Ingersoll watches to men that are able to buy $50 watches. You can't sell enough Ingersoll watches to pay good wages. To rehabilitate this country, there's a false conception in merchandising, and it's just as false as it can be. In cutting, it's all right if a man is only able to buy a home with one bathroom, and that's all he has. Give him the best house with one bathroom. You can give him. But if he's able and needs a better house with 3 or 4 bathrooms and can afford it, what do? You increase the employment of the plumber, the carpenter, the bricklayer, the stonemason. You help everybody. When you sell a dollar pen, and we sell lots of them, and we believe the man that only has $1 to pay for a pen is entitled to the best pen in the world you can give him for that money. But if he's able to buy a $10 pen, he'll buy a pen that will outlast 10 of the $1 pens. And what does he do when he buys the $10 pen instead of the $1 pen? The first thing he does is increase the income of the factory worker. The next thing he does, he increases every one of your income. 10 times. 10 times. He increases the income of the merchant 10 times. He increases the income of the salesperson behind the counter if they're on the proper basis. He increases employment a great deal because when business is increased 10 times by one sale, the same money turns over 10 times. there's 100% increase. In the early days of this country, all the Indian needed was a bow and arrow. He made his moccasin. He made everything virtually he had, and he went out and he killed with that bow and arrow what he wanted to eat. But the great and good Lord has put 133 million people in here to feed. And they've either got to be fed or starved. And they've either got, if they're going to be genuine American citizens and the right type of people, they must be given a job and furnished a job. And if there's anybody in the world that can furnish them that job, it's the salespeople of the United States. That's the bottleneck. This government has not turned the salespeople loose. They've discredited business a great deal. If they'll turn such a body of men as I see before me, and in every industry in the United States loose, to sell the people of this great country the things that they have the money now to buy and want to buy, every man can be employed that wants employment, and there need to be no idleness. I thank you. Now, our time is a little short. Grant Olson has told you about the SPOT program, and he don't think you're enthused about it, but I believe you boys, when you're presented a thing, and you go home, and you think it over, and you think it over carefully, that you will be enthused about it. You boys don't all know it, but on comes on my desk from C.R. Sheaffer and Mr. Walden and certain officers a daily report of everything you boys are doing. How many strips, how many 100-pound chickens of strips you sold that day? How many 6921 dealers you sold? We have to do it to know what we can expect or whether our men are doing their duty. It comes every morning when I go to Florida. Unfortunately, I get that every day to look over. I want to see the reports of every one of you men to come up tremendous with your abilities and the possibilities of your service. We don't ask anything more. We've selected you men to represent us. We can't represent ourselves in the field because we think you're the best type of men. That you have integrity, that you have energy, that you have ability, and that you want to make money. But there's one thing we don't want of any man, a man that don't want to make a good salary. If a man is satisfied with just a mediocre salary, we don't want him to stay with us. All we want you men to do is to make a good salary and have you have you a fine home someday and be well-to-do and be respected men and the top men in your community. And we're going to do everything in the world to help you be that. But we can only do so much. We can't do it all. And we know you don't want us to do it all. We know every one of you means to do your part. But we know that as we come together, we forget the other fellow's burden and remember a little too much of ours. Next year, when you come with your constructive ideas and let us tell you, if we can tell you now, if we have the time of the hundreds of good things that you've done. The time's too short, we can only tell you of the ones that are not so good that you've done. But we ought to have a session in the next convention when the salesman will have half of the time and the factory will have the other half of the time telling each other the decent things that have been accomplished by the other in the year past. I believe it would do a little good. I never knew anybody that wanted all criticism and no praise, nor I never knew anybody that wanted all praise and no criticism. This has been a splendid convention. Don't think we'll not get a lot out of it. Don't think that you've not taken the hide off of us in places where it ought to be taken off. It should be. We've got our shortcomings. We'll all profit by it. Let us go out of this meeting better friends. More respectful to one another. And I want to say to the best sales force in the world, God bless you.